Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City. In this video, I share my mock of a shark aquarium. You can tell it's a shark aquarium by the giant shark on the roof. This is the second best shark aquarium on YouTube. I've not seen any others, but if you have, I'm sure you will agree that mine is the second best. This is a relatively large mock and sits on a 32 by 32 stud base plate. I say it's relatively large as I build a lot of small builds such as market stalls and equipment found in LEGO buildings. However, subscribers have asked me to build larger mocks. So, in the past 2 months, I designed and built a Pizza Hut mock, a motorcycle and bike shop that is currently up on LEGO Ideas, and this shark aquarium is my third one. Before we get to the actual review of the mock, let me explain what my process was. I designed this shark aquarium as I wanted to build a different kind of building from the very popular fire stations, police stations, hospitals, hotels or diners. Not many have done good aquariums and I've yet to see a shark aquarium, especially one built as a modular building. My mock can be set between two modular buildings if wanted, or it can be a standalone building in a larger aquarium or zoo. All of my builds start off with determining the concept of the build. In this case, the shark aquarium. One approach I use in a lot of my builds is to have a central identifying feature that I want to include in the build. In this case, it is this giant shark. This is essentially the shark from the Aqua Raiders Shark Attack Set 773 from 2007. I've made some minor modifications, but it's essentially the same shark. I originally wanted to include this shark in my deep sea underwater display, but it was just too big. I could fit it as a megalodon, but I already have a sea dragon as part of my backstory in my Lost Underwater City, so I felt the giant shark would be a bit too much. As a result, this shark has been sitting on my shelf for the past 2 years. So when I decided to build the shark aquarium, it was a no-brainer that the shark would be a feature sign for the mock. When I first built the shark aquarium, I used a 32 by 16 stud base plate. I also wanted to try a diagonal entrance on the side. However, I didn't think that looked nice and it wasn't coming along well. I decided to shift the doors or entranceway to the center of the build. It was better, but I realized I needed a bigger base plate, so I moved everything to a 32 by 32 stud base plate. This gave me more space in front to put this outside fish tank in front, and it works as a very nice feature display for the building. The larger base plate also gave me more space for the back for a water filter system, which I felt was very important to include for realism. I experimented with different texturing methods for the front facade and eventually came up with this staggered brick look with transparent glass columns with trans blue round tiles inside. The use of round tiles in glass columns is not original with me, but I took it from the Ninjago City Crab Restaurant. When you're building mocks, it is perfectly acceptable to borrow ideas as long as you do not copy a design wholesale and you credit the creator or designer. The exception would be if you buy a set of instructions from a creator. In that case, you would have full permission to build the exact same build. In the second version of the mock, I also had the giant shark lined up profile side on the roof. I was never entirely happy with it and preferred my first design where the shark's mouth was just above the entrance. So I turned the shark around and mounted it head facing front in the center. This proved to look much better and is something you might expect to see in a theme park. It reminded me of the 3D Jaws hologram seen in Back to the Future Part 2. I shared this with Greg from GJ Bricks and he said the same thing. Overall, I'm really pleased with the final design of the shark aquarium. Let's have a closer look at the build. There are many small builds and design elements that work together to create a very nice facade for the shark aquarium. Let's start off at the very front with the small fish tank or fish aquarium. I designed this fish tank from the very start. I knew I wanted to have it. It's held in place simply by a jumper plate. And this is ideal for almost any building or aquarium. If you have a hotel or office building, this would work well in the lobby as well. I will do a separate video tutorial for this shark tank or this fish tank, but for now you can see it's just a semicircular tank that people can view all around and works very well as a nice front feature for the aquarium. Here we have a very pretty lady, and this is the latest addition to Small Brick City. Thanks to Brick of Gollum, who sent me the parts to build her sig fig, and she'll be placed in Small Brick City for my next city update. We've got a couple of kids over here, and they can actually see a shark through the front window. The way I designed the tank, and you see the layout of the inside of the aquarium, you can see glimpses of the aquarium from the outside, such as from this window over here, but you can also obviously see it from when you're inside the actual building because of the way the glass tank or the way the shark aquarium is designed. So these two kids, I thought they will fit very well in this little MOC, and they're very happy to see the shark up close. Over here we have another minifig, and this to me was the marine biologist, or maybe the caretaker of the shark aquarium. Going back to the design of this front facade, I have these protruding large transparent panels which acts as nice windows. I shared this technique of offsetting the window by half a stud in a previous video. You can check that out. To break up the monotony of this front wall, which is basically a solid white, I added these lights which can actually hinge up and down. The masonry bricks in this medium orange tone work very well, and you can see I've used them in various parts. That's really to break up the color of the white and the blue. The blue, of course, is a natural choice. This is an aquarium after all, so blue to match the color of water or the sea. One interesting design is this front facade, which is in the center. As mentioned earlier, I chose the staggered brick design as well as the glass columns with the trans blue round tiles inside. Overall, I think it works very well as the front central feature of the front facade of the shark aquarium. One thing I like to highlight is this little decoration over here. These are modified plates with 3 claw pieces or tooth pieces each, and they are held to modified bricks with studs on the front. Well, these two ends are just held up by 1 stud, but the rest are all held up by 2 studs, and that's the piece over there. It works very well because you can see the gray plate just behind it, so there's a very nice design element with the curvature of these teeth or claws and seeing to the back of the gray, and of course this is white, so it just works well. It reminds me of maybe shark teeth as well, so I thought works well for both sides of the wall. And I added it because without it, it could look quite plain, so I felt it was important to add some kind of design. I'd like to call attention to the front of the roof as well. I've done a video previously where I shared several different roof designs and how to make roofs differently. This particular design is not something I shared. It's a combination of ideas, and basically I've used round bricks or round studs over here, modified plates with open-ended bars, and reverse bricks as well, or inverted bricks. So multiple elements coming together to create a very nice frontage for this roof. So it looks highly textured, highly detailed, and visually quite interesting. Now we go round the side of the building. Nothing spectacular here. I've added these dark grey masonry bricks for the side of the roof as well as the side of the wall, and that's again just to break up the visual texture and make things more interesting. The back is where it becomes a bit more interesting. Notice the tiling, and you'll probably see a better view with the top view I'll give later on. This is to give a kind of it's more of a gravel look. So the front, as you notice, of course, is nicely tiled because this is the front where visitors come. The back is really where the different workers might be doing some work, so it's more unfinished in nature. This is the water filter system that I built. Now it's not following any particular water filter system that I'm familiar with, but I think that it works and it comes together. And this element here comes from one of the Batman movie sets. I believe it is the Joker balloon escape, and I kind of changed it up, added a lot of different components, added grills. I've got this water pressure gauge here, and I added these Technic connectors so that it actually connects to the building. So I think that's important for realism and adds to the nice, industrial back look of this aquarium. There's a set of steps or ladder. There's a ladder actually which goes up to the roof, which I'll show you in just a bit. So that's an all-round view of the aquarium. Notice how the shark protrudes out. It's pretty long, so it's basically, I think it's even slightly more than 32 studs. But I think the size works well in this scale. I personally think it's not too big. It looks very impressive, and if you think in terms of an attraction or a theme park, this will really capture someone's attention. And if a minifig, is making their way to the attraction, this would definitely be such a wow sight. So they get to see that, giant shark from a distance, and when they come closer, they are greeted by the live fish in this fish tank over here. And of course, if they come over here, then if they're lucky, they might actually see a real shark greeting them as well. So overall, these are all the different elements that I think come together to create a very nice facade and exterior for the shark aquarium. Now let's have a look at the top of the build. This is a top view of the build. I'll just quickly let you have a look at the back. You might be able to see the different texturing of combination of tiles, from round tiles to 2x2 tiles and 1x3 or 1x4 tiles, just to create that broken up look or distressed look for the back. For the front, we have the shark obviously on top. There's a skylight over here. Although it's not really a skylight, in my mind this was a way to access the shark tank from the top if needed. On the inside there's a separate ladder which can also access the tank, but I thought maybe for maintenance or maybe for safety, if they wanted to be able to neutralize a shark or get to a shark from a safe distance, I thought this was important. So that's nice little skylight there. Over here, I've got a couple of components that you expect to find on a roof or industrial building. And then we have the large air conditioner and the electrical junction box. Both these mini builds I taught in a previous video for builds that you can add to a roof. Now, if you notice, there are some curved slope tiles over here. And the reason why these are necessary is to hold these modified plates with the open-ended bars. Because right now, this modified plate is simply placed onto the roof plate. Now, if you just hit it, it will just drop off because it's just held on by two studs. But by using the curved slope tile, it overlaps the modified plates and is attached to the roof plate. So now this is secure. There's no way they can be actually knocked off. And it adds to a nice display element or design feature as well. This particular ladder, which gives access to the roof, can be removed. It's just held in place by a modified plate with clips. And this ladder is made up of railings, 1x4 railings, so multiple 1x4 railings, which are then held together by 1x something long plates on the bottom and 1x something tiles on top. So that's how you build a ladder, and you can go as long as you really want. This is built modular style, so the entire roof can be removed because it's held in place by studs, and we can remove it just like that, and you can see the inside of the aquarium. So typically when I design modular style roofs that removed, I always of course tile the top edges of the walls as usual, and I'll only add two stud plates, in this case 1x4 stud plates. But this time you notice I've got quite a few more. I've got a single stud here, and I've got 3 of these 1x4 stud plates, and that's due to this strange shape of the roof. If I didn't place these jumper plates, and I didn't before, just due to the design, they'll be held, the roof will be held firmly here, but they'll kind of pop up over here because it wasn't secured down. So as a general rule, if you're just having a square or rectangular shape, you can just work with 2 of these 1x4 jumper plates. But if you have this odd sized design for a roof, you might need to experiment and put in more jumper plates to hold it down firm. And here you get a top view of how this looks like. This is the front entrance, and here you can see that's the front facade, and there's actually only one door, which is here on this side over here. That's how you get in and out of the aquarium. This allows you to see inside the shark tank as well as from here. But if you go inside the entrance of the aquarium, you can actually walk in the common corridor and you can see inside the overall tank. And that's what those two minifigs are looking at right now. I used these curved semicircular trans blue pieces to add some texture to the overall look of the tank, so it's just not all straight. And now obviously you can't get a clear look, but you can see there's obviously all kinds of details of this aquarium. Now you're probably wondering, how you're going to get a better look. The minifigs have a great look, but you can't really see it. And that's why I'm going to show you what I did to solve this right now. One unrealistic feature about the shark aquarium is obviously its size. It's way too small to be an actual shark aquarium because they need a lot of space to swim around. But we need to suspend our disbelief for that aspect simply because due to practical issues and just to have the overall size, we can't make it huge. But in actual fact, it should be actually maybe 3 times the size of this just to hold the sharks. So let's just suspend our disbelief for that and pretend that this tank is big enough for the sharks. Now the issue of building it in this scale, obviously it can be quite narrow. It's hard to see inside, as you notice from the top view, and the walls are blocking you from seeing the inside of the tank. So this is the solution I came up with. So the first thing for this water filter system, it can be completely removed as it is its own small build, as you can see. Oh, by the way, there's also a rat over here. This knob can be turned and the entire back wall can be opened, and now you can see the view of the fish tank. Now you actually get to see the minifigs, and now we can actually watch them watching us. But here is the shark tank, or the 2 sharks that are in this tank. Right there, there's one, and over there which is looking out the window. And if you notice, there's a lot of seaweed on the walls. They're growing from the rocks over here. More seaweed here on the ground. There's a lobster, a shell, more details, sand banks. And on this side, you can see all the fish apparently swimming. And we even have a diver here who's doing some maintenance, just checking up on the fish. But with this design, you can see we get a really nice view of the entire aquarium, and it's really clear. So now you can imagine what the minifigs see when this wall is closed up. So that was my solution. Originally, I had this entire wall break off, but structurally it wasn't sound and the wall would often fall in. And of course then that would affect the displays on the inside. So I decided to hinge it, and that has worked out really well, as you can see. So it's almost a surprise feature because of the water filter system which is in place. You don't really think the wall can necessarily open up. One other small little point is this light, which can be seen as a beacon of some sorts for the aquarium, but this really has a practical issue. It's held in place by this modified brick which is studs on both sides, so both the front and the back. On the front I've placed this pneumatic T-bar which can turn, which acts as the lock for the back wall. But this lamp here, which is held in place by a tap element and a trans yellow brick and then a round stud, this is so that the wall doesn't go in any more than it needs to, so it acts as a stopper. So I've used a light which is part of a aesthetic design or even a functional design in the case of the aquarium, to have a real life application or purpose to prevent the wall from just swinging in and banging down all those little displays I've created. So that's my solution for the visual examination of the fish tank. But it's a nice little feature as well, just so that you can really get inside, adjust things as you need, even clean the panels, but it gives you a really good look of the aquarium. I hope you enjoyed this look at my original shark aquarium and also enjoyed listening to my design approach and philosophy when it came to putting the build together. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. As always, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. I've got more original MOCs coming up, so do turn on that notification bell so you know once I upload a video. Thanks for watching, talk to you soon.